watching Fox Sports. Home to the World Series, the BCS, the NFC Championship, the Daytona 500, and FoxSports.com. We are Fox Sports!
Fox Sports welcomes you to live coverage of the 50th running of the Coca-Cola 600. Glad you're with us on this holiday weekend for a throwback Coca-Cola classic. We have an opportunity to spend Memorial Day with you and always to give thanks to the men and women who have served our country as Ryan Newman and Kyle Busch get ready to start from the front row. We appreciate the servicemen and servicewomen and their families. Joined by special guest Steve Perez, Coca-Cola Senior Vice President and Coca-Cola Racing family member Kyle Petty.
Welcome, race fans. There's no better place to kick off summer than here at the historic 50th running of the Coca-Cola 600.
It's the passion of the fans and competitive spirit of the drivers that make the Coca-Cola 600 a special family event. As we celebrate Memorial Day weekend, we would like to thank the men and women of our military for their service to our country.
On behalf of the Coca-Cola Racing family, we welcome tonight's Grand Marshal, Bobby Allison, a three-time winner of the Coca-Cola 600, who is representing all the legends who've taken the checkered flag at this race.
So grab a nice cold Coca-Cola and join Bobby Allison for the most famous words in racing.
Okay, everybody with me. Gentlemen, start your engines. All right.
Bobby Allison, 83 NASCAR champ, excited to see the drivers of today. And with Jeff Hammond, Chris Myers from Lowe's Motor Speedway and our Hollywood Hotel. And the gang is all here. We're glad you're with us this holiday weekend. And Jeff, the setup a little bit different. The rules have all been altered a little bit for these drivers and crews today.
Well, it's because of the condition of the racetracks, because NASCAR didn't let them make any changes during that time it was back in the garage area. They had to leave the cars as they were just from last night. So they're going to be dealing with a different racetrack here today for sure. Track's going to be a lot slicker, hard to get a hold of. It's still going to go through a lot of changes, but you really got to be on top of your adjustments. But there's a few guys, as far as I'm concerned, I think they kind of moved to the head of the class as far as being able to handle these kind of conditions. Guys like Ryan Newman, Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart, I even like, Jimmy Johnson as far as this is concerned. This racetrack's going to be treacherous, and I think these guys can deal with it.
Well, it'll be slick and greasy. Why those drivers, though? Is it the veteran, the experience?
I just think they don't mind driving a race car that's kind of ill handling right now more than anything else, and that's the key, because these cars are not going to be very good to start with. They're going to have to work on them. We will have a mandatory caution flag at lap 40 if we don't have one sooner, but you don't get a chance to work on them until lap 40.
Well, we still have rain in the forecast. It's a 600-mile race, halfway to be official. So does that enter into the strategy?
I think it does, Chris. I think you've got to look at it almost the two different, situations where it's not official till halfway. You've got to be up toward the front. So guys who are going to try to get track position, stay close to that front pack, you might say, or the lead, as close as possible to around 201, 202, so they know what's going on. And then you'll have an alternative plan, which means go the distance. Then you've got to race 600 miles. So we're going to see two interesting, I think, strategies come into play here.
I mentioned the front row. We have Jeff Gordon with his back pain. He gets another day. He still has to sit for a long time. And Mark Martin at age 50, who's won here 4 times. He already has 2 wins this year. Could be the oldest driver ever to win a Coca-Cola 600.
Well, Mark, I think, has got a really good chance. But, again, I'm not too sure that he's ready to handle one of these ill race cars. He knows what this racetrack's going to be like when they drop the green flag here. He's raced during the day. A lot of these guys maybe don't have as much experience with a daylight type scenario as Mark does, for example. So he may fare pretty well also.
Maybe it's meant to be the high noon race, right?
Hey, I love it because of the fact 50 years ago, Joe Lee Johnson had to do it this way. Daylight racing the way it's supposed to be. Hey, our man DW, he won all 5 of his races during the daylight hours. He knows what it's all about.
And up to the play-by-play booth with Darrell Waltrip, Larry McReynolds, and Mike Joy. And good afternoon, gentlemen.
Thanks, Chris, and hello, everybody. We're going to try to get 600 miles in today, of course. But the forecast for sunny weather is 60% from now until about 1 p.m. and 40% from then until, Friday or so. Darrell, in the race car, does the possibility of this race not going the full distance affect the way you drive as we approach the midway point?
Well, I don't know. 2 things that pop out to me. All we hear about is the testing policy, that it's hurt the races, that these guys don't get a chance to go work on these cars. If that's the case, today ought to be a barn burner, because we've been over here for 10 days, and you've tried everything in the world thorough, Larry, that you need to do to these cars. And my opinion about the 200 lap mark, you let that affect you when you get close to it, but you got to run your regular race until you get near that 200 lap mark, and then you may make a quick adjustment.
And the thing about it, these guys, they have never had the same racetrack to deal with 2 consecutive days, because they've not been on the racetrack since Saturday, and they were fighting the weather on Saturday. The one good full practice they got was on Thursday when the sun was out and the track was hot. I think you're going to see a day of these guys, all 43 of them, chasing the racetrack, making adjustments constantly all day long. And I think you're going to see some desperation in the back of the field with people like Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burt, Matt Kenseth, because we know we're going to have somebody out there that's going to hit on it from the beginning, maybe too good at the beginning, and these guys are going to be back there fighting just to stay on the lead lap.
Well, one thing we expected to do that we hope we won't do today is race from daylight into darkness. Let's have a look at the starting lineup for the 50th annual Coca-Cola 600. Ryan Newman, 8 poles. That leads all active drivers at this racetrack. David Pearson won 14. Kyle Busch shares the front row with Flying Ryan. Teammates from Hendrick Motorsports, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, and Jimmy Johnson, all starting together with the Budman, Casey Kane, who knows his way to victory lane here, Darrell.
Let's see if we can dial him up. Casey Kane, it's a DW in the Fox Sports booth. Buddy, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you, DW.
All right, young man. How does this race going off today at noon affect your strategy based on what you had planned?
Well, it's still just as long, so we got to, race the racetrack for a while here. I think the track will be a good bit different than what it's been in practice, probably. So just see where the car's at, make the right adjustments, communicate well with Kenny, and I think if we do that kind of stuff, hopefully we'll be towards the front late in the race when we need the track position.
Casey, will you push hard here at the beginning because, there's rain in the area and we could race maybe only to 200 laps? So are you going to push pretty hard at the start?
I think we'll definitely be looking, watching the weather and seeing where we're at come halfway. But these first 50 laps here, I think just see what the car's doing, make sure everything's under control, and then go for it from there.
All right, my friend, have a great day in the old Bud car, and we'll see you in Victory Circle.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Darrell. Look back through the back of the field, and starting last is Scott Riggs. Word this weekend that he will leave Tommy Baldwin Racing after this race, kind of by mutual agreement. We'll see how Riggs fares today, starting from the back. Make it a great race day with a perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager.
Let's take a look at our FedEx Understanding the Race. This is the trends of the patterns of the last 8 Coca-Cola 600s NASCAR on Fox. Number of cautions, average 11. In 2001 to 2004, it was average of 7, but since they repaved this place and it's gotten faster, a little more the last 4 years. The longest green flag run, average about 96 laps. I can guarantee you we will see at least one set of green flag pit stops. The last caution period, remember this is a 400-lap race, comes with about 39 laps to go. Now this excludes the 2003 race because it was rain shortened. In cars on the lead lap, average of 14 finishing on the lead lap. We have a few more than that these last several races.
A green racetrack from a day and night of rain. A lot of unknowns as the 50th Coke 600 gets set to unfurl the green flag on Memorial Day.
EW, she's the longest race we run of all 36, but most importantly, in honor of our men and women, boys and girls fighting for our freedom, reach up there and pull those belts tight one more time.
I don't care where you are, whether you're here today or whether you're in Afghanistan or Iraq, wherever you are, this one's for you. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys.
Got a good jump on the start.
Yeah, he made that outside line work for him and paid off just like he thought it would.
So the Rocket leads lap 1. Now here's a note about this 43-car field. Every car in the field is sponsored. Every car in the field has the intention of running the full race. There are no start and park entries in this Coke 600.
And I think that tells you the importance and the prestige of this race. You come here loaded for bear, hoping to have a great day, make a name for yourself.
You know, when you look at our top 6 or 7 cars right now, even though we know that there's a second and third groove here, right now all of them are right around the bottom of the racetrack. You can actually see that 5 car lost a little ground, Mark Martin right in the middle of 1 and 2.
As long as your tires are fresh, I think you can run the bottom like you see. But as soon as those tires go off, pressure build up a little bit, you'll start moving around more with the racetrack. Right now you got a lot of grip.
Darrell Dale Jr. down in turn 1, backed up the back of the pack up in turn 1. We'll get to that in a minute as Kyle Busch takes the lead. First lead change of the day. It happens on lap 3.
I just think Kyle Busch in this 18 car has so much, but he has motivation to win every race he runs, and I think he shows that. But he was so dominant in the Nationwide Series race Saturday night after starting at the back and lost it because of basically strategy and the race being rain short.
Matt Kenseth making some ground as Earnhardt continues to give up spots in that high groove.
Yeah, and what we're seeing, and I think you're going to see it pretty quickly, all these cars will be single file here before we run too many more laps. Right now, you're feeling out the track, feeling out your car. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way right now.
Brian Vickers moving on Jeff Gordon for 5th. Completes the pass in turn 3.
Right now you won't challenge anybody, Mike. Right now you'll give up a little bit because you know you got a long way to go, and there's no reason to be racing anybody right now. Not hard anyway.
Hamlin and Montoya 8th place side by side into turn 1. That's Denny on the bottom. Juan Palo up on top.
You know, when you go back to what practice we did get on Saturday, that 11 car, Denny Hamlin, Joe Gibbs Racing, I think he maybe had one of the faster cars and one of the better cars on the long run. But a couple of cars I've been watching that's really been coming up through the field, Kurt Busch in that 2 car, Carl Edwards, who we're riding with here in the 99 car, started 19th and 17th. They're back to crack the top 10.
Larry, when I think about racing this afternoon, think about Atlanta. We raced there in the daylight, in the afternoon. And the 2 car won that race, and the 99 was mighty strong. I believe this got a little rain, they say. Got a little caution here.
And the caution appears for the first time today, just as Joey Nemechek and Joey Logano were battling for 10th place. Saturday night, Kyle Busch led 3 times for 98 laps in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. But the timing of a late race caution and then the resultant rain gave the win to Mike Bliss. Welcome back to Lowe's Motor Speedway. 8 laps complete under caution for a little sprinkle. We're going to get 1 to go this time by. 11 cars made an appearance on pit road. Here's our Aflac trivia question for the day. Who scored their first Cup victory in NASCAR's longest race, the Coca-Cola 600? We'll give you a few minutes to ponder that one. And don't count the drivers who won here their first ever race in October at this track. Buddy Baker, Charlie Glotzback, and Jamie McMurray. We're looking for the ones who won in May for their first victory.
And Mike, we had several cars like Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr., this 88 car, that were kind of backing up when they dropped the green flag. And we had about 11 of them come to pit road, including Dale Earnhardt Jr. But here's what's interesting. They're going to make sure he sees his pit pocket.
Got this thing going on. Signs flying.
But if you notice, they're not putting any fuel in the car. You can only change tires. You can make adjustments. NASCAR is going to throw a caution around lap 40. And the rule that we have when we know they're going to do that is you cannot fuel the car prior to that lap. That's to keep someone from coming in at lap 30 or 35 if we have a caution and then staying out on that lap 40.
Okay, Matt Kenseth among those who pitted, Clint Boyer, Michael Waltrip, Jeff Burton. Let's check with Steve Burns.
Mike, the early report from Jeff Gordon, he says the front end of the car is okay, but it's very edgy in the back, and he's having a hard time getting to the bottom of the racetrack.
Yeah, you could see that, Steve. He was one of the first cars that ventured up to the top of the track. That's because the car's a little bit loose, and he just can't hook the bottom like he'd like to.
And I'd say that a lot of that is just no rubber on the racetrack.
Let's mention the other drivers who pitted. Greg Biffle, Tony Raines, David Stremme, Robbie Gordon, and Max Pappas all made pit stops. How about Biffle, Dick?
Oh, interesting strategy with Greg Biffle, Mike. They couldn't adjust the chassis on the cars until the race got started today, so they put a round and a half in the left rear. That'll tighten the car up a little bit. But the tires that they took off, they liked them. So they have put lug nuts on them. They're re-gluing those tires so they can put them back on the car again with a known commodity.
I think that's part of some of these guys' strategies. That's like buffing in a set of tires. You like the tires, buff them in, put them up there, and you can put them on later on, maybe up under green if you need to.
Mike Bliss and Robbie Gordon both making pit stops just before we go back to green. First caution of the day for a little bit of rain. So how many did you guess? Drivers who scored their first Cup win in the Coca-Cola 600. Probably the biggest name on that list would be David Pearson. There were 5 of them. And here they are.
That's actually Casey Mears' only career win. Matt Kenseth, he did that in his rookie season back in 2000.
Jeff Gordon and Bobby Labonte. Set to go green. We have completed 10 laps. They'll take the green flag. Finishing up lap 11, Kyle Busch has led 6 laps. Pole sitter Ryan Newman the first 2.
Watch these restarts, Mike. Spin the tires real easy on this restart.
Tell you something else that happened during that little caution period. The sun popped out.
Jeff Gordon goes to work right on the bottom against Brian Vickers, who passed him under green. And Denny Hamlin in the 11 has a look on the outside.
Now, sometimes, you know, your car's a little bit off. Get a caution like we did there early. Tires go through a little bit of a cycle. All of a sudden, you got a happy car.
Tell you what, I believe that 083 car, Brian Vickers, is a pretty happy car right now. He's starting to challenge Casey Kane in that 9 for the 4th spot.
Brian Vickers going to win a race over here, Larry. He ran good over here Saturday night in the nationwide race. He had a car that could win the race at Atlanta, very similar racetrack. He'll be up front all day, I can promise you that.
Boy, Kevin Harvick climbed the hill between turns 1 and 2 and almost got some of that 50th anniversary gold from the safer barrier on the side of his car. Let's see, was it the result of contact?
And we see the fender on TV knocked in so bad. It's knocked in about 2 inches.
Got a little smoke coming off that, looks like left front, I guess it is.
Watch Sam Hornish.
No, it's his right front, actually.
To his right.
Yeah, ooh, yeah, and you can see the fender got all buckled up right there.
Clear.
Now Paul Menard almost gets in the turn 2 wall, sliding up the hill. Looks like Harvick's going to have to stop.
Yeah, he is fallen all the way to the back of the pack now. We see battle between teammates. Joey Logano, who turned 19 years old yesterday in that 20 car, and Denny Hamlin in the 11. That's a battle for 9th.
So you were talking about Kyle Busch and how good he was going to run today, and the Gibbs cars, all the Gibbs cars are going to run good today. They like this racetrack, and they've got a good setup for here.
Let's check with Matt.
And I don't know what team had more optimism coming in, Mike. In DW, we talked about cars that really produce someplace, and then you put it aside, saving it for a big marquee event. That's exactly what the 2 team did with this car that went to victory lane at Atlanta. They refined it, they tweaked on it. Aerodynamic numbers look much better in the wind tunnel, so they saved it for this race, the Coca-Cola 600. He says the car's a little loose on entry and off, but very strong.
Logano and Hamlin continue their battle, and Darrell, for teammates, they're fighting awfully hard this early in the race.
Yeah, I think that one of them ought to give.
Car in the wall, turn 1, and it is Harvick. He bounces off the wall, gets down to the track apron, no caution.
The bad luck for this 29 car just continues in 2009.
All right, see that? You want to pick this time, Gil?
There's the yellow.
Yes, sir. We'll come around.
You can see that right front tire was down from the fender rub.
Oh, if it wasn't for bad luck. Here's a look at it this last time around into turn 1.
Car just wouldn't turn a lick.
Just went on the wall there, Gil. Look.
Pretty calm about it.
There's his wife Delana looking at the replays.
And I know that was a brand new car that they just barely finished to get it out here for this.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Hamburger Helper. 1 pound, 1 pan, 1 tasty meal. By Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. It'll change the way you experience the race. By State Farm, where great coverage meets great rates. And by the Ford F-150. It's not just a pickup truck, it's a Ford F-150.
18 laps complete. Kevin Harvick made it around to pit road. What was left of his right front tire, however, did not. They have made repairs, and Harvick stays on the lead lap. Pitting again this time as we get 1 to go. You know, we're racing hard to get 600 miles in, and that's the drivers, the teams, and an attaboy to the track crew as well.
Looks like Jenson Button yesterday at Monaco when he parked his car in the wrong place, got out and had to run back to the podium.
I don't think we give guys like this enough credit, though, for the work they do on these racetracks.
Time for a question from Ask.com, official search engine of NASCAR. What is Tobacco Road? Get the answer now at Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge for a chance to win daily prizes and a trip to Talladega. All right, we're getting set for this restart at lap 19, but Dick Berggren, is there an issue with our leader?
Yeah, the sun has come out at Lowe's Motor Speedway, and it seems as if it's shining on everyone but Kyle Busch. He has radioed to the crew and told them that he can smell electrical in the car and that the gauges are bouncing around, particularly the oil temperature gauge.
You know what, Doc? Now, remember, these cars have been out here with a lot of rain and a lot of moisture. And so there could possibly be some moisture in his wiring system that's creating that smell. Hopefully, maybe not that problem.
Keep an eye on that as we're ready for our Claret and Clear to drive restart. Live Claret and Clear indoors and out. Kyle Busch leading from Ryan Newman, Mark Martin, Casey Kane, Brian Vickers, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Montoya, Hamlin, and Logano as we go back to green, completing lap number 20. Green flag.
Everybody got a pretty clean restart, it looks like, but I want to stress on that 18 car, the oil pressure jumping around and the smell electrical could be related because most of these cars are running electrical gauges. They're not mechanical gauges like we ran for so many years.
I just always worry about my race car when it's been sitting in the moisture and the dew and the rain and all like these cars have been. It always creates some kind of a problem.
3 wide up in turn 4. Montoya goes way up top. Can't find a way around Jimmy Johnson as they come to the line.
No, but Jeff Gordon was thinking, yikes, I remember this from a week ago.
Well, he's probably sitting there saying, guys, we got a caution coming in 20 laps.
And that will be the competition yellow to check tire wear after a day of rain. Look at Logano as the rookie from Connecticut moves past Jeff Gordon.
Been watching that 20 car, Larry. It looks just like our leader's car. He's right on the white line on the bottom of the racetrack, and he is coming forward.
He seems to be able to run anywhere he wants to right now. Ran 5th in the Nationwide Series race the other night, so comes in here with some confidence. But I watched earlier that 42 car of Juan Pablo Montoya. He went straight to the top of the racetrack from the drop of the green flag, which was not a big surprise for him.
Again, just think back to Atlanta, the times we've been there. That's kind of his line of preference, right up next to that gold wall we see there.
Montoya has won the Grand Prix of Monaco. He's won the Indy 500. He's looking for the Memorial Day weekend triple.
Yes, he is, and Jeff Gordon's got his hands full. I mean, the cars are getting under him, getting on the outside of him. I think he's just trying to hang on to that first caution.
Steve?
And Daryl, Jeff Gordon just said, boys, we are in big trouble. He said it's getting real tight. It's not rolling the middle, and I'm tight on the gas. I'm not carrying any speed off the corner.
No, he isn't, Steve. He's getting just eaten up off turn 4 particularly.
And I think we talked about that at the top of the show. Jeff Hammond talked about it as we see this battle for second place between Ryan Newman and Mark Martin. It's not what a crew chief wants to hear right now, that the car's tight, because you would anticipate it would be loose with no rubber on the racetrack.
Matt?
Mike, as far as the pole sitter Ryan Newman, currently running in the second spot, he said his only issue is the car is snug, a little tight down in the center of 3 and 4. But right now, with the sun out, they're not really sure how dramatic this track is going to change. So he's just going to sit back and ride until we get to that mandatory caution.
But you know what, Mike, Larry, just think if we'd have started this race last night under these conditions, you would want a race car that you're going to adjust to the track changing. Today, you don't have the track changing. It is what it's gonna be all day long. So you got to get busy on this first pit stop.
Front 7, single file. The battle is for 8th. Hamlin underneath Montoya, and Kurt Busch in the number 2 coming with him.
You know, the Coca-Cola 600 has never been very good to Kurt Busch. He's never finished in the top 10. His best finish is 11th.
Patches of sunlight in turn 2, turn 4, the front and back straightaway. And in about 14 laps, we will have that competition caution at about lap 40 to dial things in. You're watching NASCAR on Fox. Early in the going in the Coke 600, 32 of 400 laps complete. Our Toyota top performers: Kyle Busch, Brian Vickers, Joey Logano. Right there, positions 1, 3, and 7. The caution for adjustments comes at lap 40, 7 laps from now, and for some drivers it can't come soon enough.
Oh, I think there's a lot of guys. I mean, if you think about our leader right now, he's in the middle of the back straightaway. The last place car, which is Max Pappas, he's just now going by the start finish line. If this thing went green very much longer, some of the back markers would be a lap down.
And to give you an idea of how effective these adjustments can be, Matt Kenseth restarted back in the 30s after he made a pit stop on the first caution flag. He's up to 19th.
Yeah, he has definitely been on the move in that 17 car as he goes to work on Bobby Labonte in that 96.
Now, from the start of the race, Tony Stewart has gained the most ground. The winner of the Sprint All-Star race currently in 15th place.
Yeah, he just didn't get that great of a qualifying run in. He's moved up about 13 or 14 spots, but Steve Burns was telling us during commercial break that he told Darian Grubb, his crew chief, car's pretty good in traffic, which is great because that's something these guys fight a lot, especially at a mile-and-a-half racetrack.
Shot out of Tony's windshield, looking forward. The 9 car just got around to 48, and I just kind of feel good about Casey's chances today. That's why I was glad I got a chance to talk to him in the opening there, because I think he's going to have a really good day here.
But I would say when it's all said and done, about 365 laps from now, if they don't have an issue, if you're going to win this race, you'll probably have to beat that car we're looking at right now, Jimmy Johnson in that 48 Lowe's car.
They are definitely sporty here, Larry, but they've had some issues over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think where they really showed their championship form was a couple of weeks ago, though, as we see the battle between the 20 car of Logano and Kurt Busch and the 2. This is a battle for 7th, but that 48 showed so much championship form at Darlington, unloading that backup car unpracticed and finished 2nd, having a lot of issues along the way.
You know, Joey Logano turned 19 yesterday. If we'd run the race, he could have been the 3rd driver ever to win on his birthday. And if you want an idea just how far he's come in the real world, let's have a look at today's Home Depot rookie file, in which Joey talks about, after 10 years of racing experience, going to get his license to drive on the road.
I don't know.
The day I turned 15, I got my learner's permit, and the day I turned 16, I got my license. And it was funny, actually. I mean, taking the driver's test is, you know, the written part obviously is the hardest part, and then they take you around in the car, and you know, she goes, go to 20 mile an hour real quick and then stop real quick. So I'm like, okay. So I stabbed this thing full throttle, spinning the tires, and then I just jabbed the brakes and I sent it through the windshield, and I'm like, she told me to do.
I've actually failed my first driver's test because I was used to riding my go-kart and using both feet to drive, gas and brake. So when he told me to stop, I was kind of like Joey. I hit that left foot on that brake pedal, and I stopped about the same way Joey did.
Have you seen that inspector, like after you won 3 championships in NASCAR, just to remind him?
No,
that'd be a fun conversation.
50 years ago.
You know, there were a lot of divisions that Joey raced in that once they found out that he was not old enough to race in that division, they put him out. And I think it was 2 reasons. 1, he wasn't old enough. 2, the older guys didn't like him beating their tail on race day. So, and that happened especially in the Legends divisions down around Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Logano and Casey Kane for 7th place. Here's the look from the Bud Cam back at the Home Depot Camry.
Well, we're on lap 40. I guess we'll be getting the caution this time by.
probably when the field cycles through, and there it is.
Competition yellow.
So this is the competition yellow that NASCAR talked about during the drivers' meeting. Because of all the rain that has fallen, and because these cars were set up to race from daytime into night, NASCAR said we'll throw a caution, give you a chance to make adjustments, and here it is.
And Darrell, you mentioned it. There's some guys that really were looking forward to that caution, like Kevin Harvick, who had the problem earlier, Michael Waltrip, and Dale Earnhardt Jr., who made that stop. He was not that far in that 88 car from getting lapped by Kyle Busch.
The leader was coming, I can tell you, and those guys got to see him in his mirror.
43 starters, all cars still running on the lead lap.
Now, I think we will see probably all 43 of them on pit road, but I think we will see a variety of strategies. We know they're all going to put fuel, and probably most of them are going to go with at least right side tires.
Now, pit road is not yet open, but Kevin Harvick, whose car is still suffering damage from 2 bouts with the turn 1 wall, is already on pit road. He'll have to start tail end of the longest line after they make repairs.
I just believe Jeff Gordon, that 24 car, even though he had fallen in to about the top 15 back in 14th, I think he's another one very relieved to get this caution flag.
They head for pit road, beginning with Chris Devoda.
Brian Vickers, the Red Bull team, is charging. Brian saying his car is just a little bit tight center and off. He said it's a tick tight on the bottom. Ryan Pemberton, the crew chief, said they're just going to fix that with air pressure. A 4-tire change expected for the Red Bull 83. Steve.
Big adjustments for Jeff Gordon, that 24 car. He says his car still very edgy, tight on throttle, rubber in the right rear, a track bar adjustment, Dick.
Kyle Busch turned his gauges off, then turned them back on again, rebooting them. That solved the electrical problem. Matt.
The pole sitter Ryan Newman said his car was extremely tight. He gave the call to Tony Gibson, his crew chief, whether to go 2 tires or 4. They went 4, track bar adjustment, significant air pressure change as well to try to free him up.
Well, the guy that rolled the dice, we just talked about that car a while ago, Chad Knaus, that 48 car went with 2 right side tires only.
And Greg Biffle had been in earlier. He picks up 15 spots on pit road. Here's the race off pit road. Green flag. 44 of 400 laps complete.
This is also a good part of the race to do a little bit of science projects. Try 2 right side tires.
Well, they were 4 wide, Larry. Bill Elliott in the 21 got caught. He was either the meat or the cheese in the middle of that sandwich, right down the back straightaway, backed out of it. But Tony Stewart, he is coming to the front.
He was the rock between 2 hard places. I can tell you, this guy, they just fan out down this back right here. Look at back here. There's Bill. Elliott Sadler squeezing up on the outside. Comes Tony to the bottom.
That's Scott Speed in the silver car. 4 abreast down toward turn 3. And they all made it. Steve.
Mike, pretty big adjustments to Tony Stewart's 14 car, as Jeff Hammond referenced. They made a track bar adjustment. They took a spring rubber out of the left rear. They also made an air pressure adjustment. Tony said, I didn't want to do that much, but guys, let's do it. I'd rather do it now instead of later.
There you go. You can always put it back, but you don't want to wait too late in the race and get too far behind by making that many adjustments on a pit stop.
I think that's where the driver has to trust the crew, that they know better than he does. He might give them good feedback, but he needs to let them make the decision what to do.
David Reagan from Georgia chasing Stewart, and up front Jimmy Johnson has company. Kyle Busch, a former teammate, and Mark Martin, who took over the ride vacated by Busch when he went to Joe Gibbs Racing. They have about a 1-second gap on Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Brian Vickers. Jimmy Johnson leads the Coke 600.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Budweiser. Reach for the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager.
53 laps complete. We have a new leader. Kyle Busch has passed Jimmy Johnson. Mark Martin has moved up to second.
I think Mark's he's not gonna let that 18 car get away from him this time. Mark's actually driving pretty hard for Mark Martin at this point in the race, and he's actually closing down a little bit on our leader. Tony Stewart, though, he's in a hurry to get to the front.
He is on the move in that 14 car. He was 3 wide lap before this down there in 3 and 4.
He's slicing and dicing. He doesn't wait on him.
Stewart has climbed to 13th. Kurt Busch has moved into 3rd. Brian Vickers to 4th. Denny Hamlin to 5th. Is there a problem with Jimmy Johnson? He's now slipped to 6th place. Krista?
Well, Jimmy's just getting a little loose. He did complain that his car was a little loose before they made that 2-tire pit stop. He said he is still loose on the bottom. But remember, this team thrives on adjustability. Chad Knaus told me this morning they are a long race team. And he also told me this race will go the distance. I said, is that scientific proof or wishful thinking? He said a little of both.
I think it was a bad call to put 2 tires on this early in the race.
Well,
when he was already running that good.
What beat them in the All-Star race? Now, I know that's comparing an apple to a banana. They went with 4 tires.
They went 4 tires every stop in the All-Star race. Today, I think he should have taken 4. He takes 2. I'm sure he's just compiling information.
I will guarantee you that's what Chad Knaus is doing.
Bobby Labonte, a 2-time winner at Lowe's Motor Speedway, has been battling Jeff Gordon now for about the last 5 laps. That's for 15th place.
Yeah, I think Jeff Gordon's in trouble. He just doesn't have the car right now. They may be able to adjust it up and make it better for him, but well, he's really got his hands full, it appears to me.
Car that seems pretty solid right behind Jeff Gordon. Sam Hornish Jr. in that 77 car started 26th. He's cracked the top 20 up to 17th. Won the All-Star Showdown last Saturday night and transferred into the All-Star race.
There's a driver that has just continually improved right there. 2 top 10s already this year and really been running good here at Charlotte.
And congratulations to his car owner Roger Penske getting his 15th Indy 500 win yesterday up at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And to Elio Castroneves, great to see Elio in victory lane at the Brickyard.
3-time champ.
Our pole sitter Ryan Newman had to make that pit stop for lug nuts to be replaced after he'd made his pit stop, and he's mired deep in the pack in 33rd. Matt?
Mike Newman slowly making his way back toward the front. He just moved into the 33rd position a lap and a half ago. The good news for Ryan Newman fans, the car extremely tight before that stop. He says now the car is very free as he's trying to take the low side on the 44. Now the one thing about his pit stop, you might call blame on the front changer, Mike Trower. He had to replace those lugs. But a key conversation that Tony Gibson said on the radio to their jack man, simply keep an eye, Andy Turner, on the front changer. You've got to time it a little bit better, and Jeff Hammond knows from being a jack man, it's all about timing, keeping an eye on when you think and anticipate that your changer is going to hit all those lugs. Then you drop it.
Looking back from Kurt Busch at Brian Vickers and Denny Hamlin.
Tell you what, I just was watching turn 4, happened to look over there, and there was a number 48 car, and I know it was him because I could read his number, that was dog walking.
Sideways.
What's this?
Let's watch from Casey Kane's view of Jimmy Johnson.
This won't be the first time that he's been sideways down in 3 and 4.
Man. I think those 2 tires at this point in the race could bite him big time.
Yeah, because our leader, Kyle Busch, is running 31.07. A lot of cars behind him running teens and 20s. And right now, Jimmy Johnson in the 31.60s.
Mark Martin staying within 0.7 of a second of Kyle Busch. 61 laps complete. Kyle Busch now 1.2 seconds. There he goes. There's Mark Martin in second place. Vickers, Busch, Hamlin, the front 5. Here's another question from Ask.com. There are 3 drivers in this race that are natives of the Tar Heel state. What's a Tar Heel? Get the answer now at Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR.
You know, Mike, we were talking about Jimmy Johnson, and oh, man, Sorry, guys.
And the 2 tires that he took during that caution flag. You might say it's so early in the race, if you're going to take that gamble, what better time?
Well, yeah, but I disagree. With track changing conditions right now, I mean, the track's got to rubber up. I think with 2 tires right now, you're just going to get a lot of bad information. The driver can't tell you anything about what the car is doing because the car is junk right now. So you're going to get a pit stop behind, in my mind.
And even though it didn't work for them now, they're going to get gun shy of it, and I will guarantee you in the late stages of this race, somebody's going to roll the dice and go with 2 tires, keeping that track position. They're going to be gun shy. They're going to say, remember what happened to us in the beginning of the race.
But I would be okay with that if that would get me in a position to win the race. But I'm not okay with that right now, this early in the race when we're still fighting a changing track.
How about this battle for 6th where Joey Logano has moved up past Jimmy Johnson and Casey Kane?
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy is just hanging on to that car. And just think about Jimmy Johnson for a second. He spun out at Richmond. He spun out qualifying at Darlington. He was in a wreck at Talladega. He spun out somewhere else. I can't remember where else we've been here recently. Like 4 races in a row, that car was around backwards. And I think he needs some security in that car.
Well, he got turned around in the All-Star race.
In the All-Star race, that was where it was.
You know, right behind these 2 cars right here, behind Montoya and that 42 car, is a car that's been on the move since the drop of the green flag. David Ruderman in the 00 car, and we do have caution on the speedway.
Excuse me, Larry. Yeah, we got a little bit of moisture. It usually starts down in turns 1 and 2.
This ain't rain.
Oh, what is
we
this?
had rain yesterday.
Yeah, that was rain.
These are sprinkles.
If you were watching yesterday afternoon, a sheet of rain marched its way down the backstretch like a car wash. It was just incredible. You got soaked, you got dried out. Folks got soaked, they got dried out. And finally, they got enough rain in this place, the plug was pulled so that the race wouldn't have to start at 11 o'clock at night and finish at 3 in the morning.
This whole infield right here in front of us was just standing full of water. It just came in down in sheets.
So I think there's several cars that are glad to see this caution because we had several that were about to fall within the clutches of leader Kyle Busch. But I think half the Hendrick Motorsports group were glad to see it. Jimmy Johnson, the 48, and Matt was telling us that Dale Earnhardt Jr., the 88 car, absolutely total junk out there, running back in the 36th position.
Well, some days I hate it when the weatherman is right, and this is one of them. The forecast for today was 40% chance of thunder showers until 1 o'clock, and then from 1 o'clock on, only 40% chance of sunshine. So right now, looks like we're getting about 80% of that 60%.
Holy
falling
cow.
down in turn
time
2.
out, time out. How many percent is that anyway?
Yeah.
40, 80, 60. I can't keep up.
Doesn't add up, does it?
Sound like Yogi Berra.
But here's the thing. We're going to keep these cars going around this track, get back to green, and try to get this whole 600 miles in today. Next week, Dover, Delaware. All right, Krista, pit road's open. What are we getting? Wipers?
Yeah, that's exactly what's needed. We do have a little bit of precipitation down here. Brian Vickers coming in. He is having a great run right now. Said they're going to stick with 4 tires. That's what they did on the last stop. They had a good stop. They don't want to mess with anything. Steve.
Krista, new Jackman on the 14. Rick Pigeon filling in for an injured Mike Casto. They debated 2 tires, but they're going to go ahead and take 4 at this point in the race, Dick.
Well, Kyle Busch is already out of here because he took just 2 tires. Matt.
Kurt Busch thinks the trend we're seeing now with his car being too free is what we're going to see for the rest of the day. They're going to make a significant air pressure change for Busch, 4 tires, and he is slip sliding out of his box.
Boy, a lot of wheel spin there as pit road becomes damp.
It's raining. No, it's not. It's coming down pretty hard right now, Mike, and the pit road got wet. That's out of the 5 car right there. He was trying to back up to get out of his pit box and hit that tire.
Now, this is a thunder shower, and hopefully we can get this track dried out before too long. We'll be right back.
What percentage is it going to be?
Tell you in a minute.
Okay.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Coca-Cola. Open a Coke and celebrate the 50th running of the Coca-Cola 600. We welcome you back live at AT&T Race Break under caution because of rain. 4th caution we've had, postponed, of course, from Sunday, hoping to get 600 miles in. A quick recap. about an hour into this race, and Ryan Newman from the pole, the Daytona 500 winner in 2008, hasn't won in 46 straight races. Led a couple of laps. Kevin Harvick, the 2007 Daytona 500 winner, has some problems here, bumping with Hornish Jr. then into the wall. That creates a tire problem, and Harvick continuing to have problems. Ryan Newman had problems in the pits.
Yes, he did. He comes around here, left side change. You see the left front go on, a little trouble right there, and all of a sudden the Jackman drops it a little too quick. They don't get him tight. He had to come back to pit road to get those reinstalled.
And moments ago, the round of pit stops, we saw Mark Martin near the front of the pack most of the day as that tire rolls through, Jeff, out into the middle, belonging to the car and the pit crew of Mark Martin.
Yeah, he'll have to come back down pit road because of that. They're not very happy about that when NASCAR sees those tires go across pit road.
All right, so some of the things you've seen so far with adjustments, with rain figuring it looks more and more, whether we want 600 miles or not, you have to be thinking halfway point.
I think so right now. You've got to be on top of those kind of adjustments. We saw early on where Tony Stewart, they made some pretty wholesale changes in that 14 car, even though he was pretty good at the drop of the green flag. But now, again, he's already made his way back up through traffic, looking pretty promising. But I watched cars like Dale Earnhardt Jr. They came down pit road early on that pit stop. They made a big change to the right front of that car and went further back. So this is an opportunity for them to kind of work on it, try to go back the other direction, and hopefully give them an opportunity to get that 88 car back in the competition to where he can be competitive.
And from your AT&T phone, text the car number for the crew you think will be fastest to 22558, the fastest pit crew of the year award delivered by AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network. Kyle Busch has led 64 laps so far. He seems like the car to beat, and we're trying to beat the rain right now. We're live at Lowe's Motor Speedway. More in a moment. The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Subway, home of the famous $5 footlong. Subway, eat fresh. By AT&T, your world delivered. By FedEx Racing, we understand every day is race day. And by Aflac, we've got you under our wing.
Ready to race in Charlotte this Memorial Day weekend.
This one is for all the men and women in the armed forces.
Let's go racing, boys. It's the 50th running of the Coke 600. The cars are rolling once again on this, the most solemn of American holidays. Our forefathers fought for freedom and to preserve it. Exploration, innovation, industrialization, the Great War, the Depression, the war to end all wars, the Cold War, Vietnam, the electronic age, space, the final frontier. And now we look back on all those years and we fondly remember those who gave that last full measure of devotion so that we could spend a day like this at a place like this enjoying a sport like this.
You know, Mike, the intelligence of the men and women in the military today, I've been around, I've been to Washington a few times, to Walter Reed Hospital and other places, but the intelligence, the equipment that they use today, and the execution, the way they go about doing their business these days, and the men and women volunteer to be in the Army. That to me is that's why NASCAR and the military go so well together. Those are the same things that you see at a NASCAR race.
We're at 76 laps. Caution laps are counting as we complete a red flag period of nearly 57 minutes. Kyle Busch has led 64 of those laps. Jimmy Johnson 6. Ryan Newman the first 2. Darrell, I couldn't agree more. We have become the greatest nation of consumers on earth.
We buy and want more. We may live beyond our means, and I wonder if our forefathers would be so proud of us but for one gleaming segment of our population, and that is our U.S. military, that remains true to the ideals that this country was founded upon, and every day goes out to preserve peace around the world for people like-minded as we Americans, so that we can enjoy a day like today as well.
Liberty and justice for all.
You know, Mike, you mentioned at the top of the show Scott Riggs would be leaving Tommy Baldwin Racing, and he's our leader right now, started shotgun on the field. Tommy Baldwin, at this point, he's elected not to bring Scott Riggs to pit road. Got his 5 bonus points for leading, and you know what, getting a little TV time right now.
Now, this is a car that has been start and park at some races where they don't have a sponsor or the funds to buy tires to run the whole show, but they got Shea Trucking off Long Island, where Tommy Baldwin's from. Cooter's Bar and Grill right near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on the hood. So you know this team is eating well and transported well, and they're here to run the whole race today. Attaboy.
You just love Tommy Baldwin's attitude from the minute they rolled in Daytona back in February. He says, as long as we race, as long as we have money, we're going to race, and when we run out of money, we're going to race one more time.
Here's a question from Ask.com. What is North Carolina barbecue? You can get the answer now at Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge at the official search engine of NASCAR.
Just know, being from Kentucky, I ask myself that question all the time.
All right, Scott Riggs has given up the lead to make an appearance on pit road. And remember Mark Martin for that tire that rolled out on pit road. He is now headed to the back of the field.
And Mike, we need to add that Jimmy Johnson, he will restart this race where he came on the pit road. Even though he had to get that push with that 48 car, when we have a red flag and they shut the engines off, they do not penalize a team as long as the car will eventually crank with the push.
Okay. There's some interesting things in there. Oh, Digger, where you been all day, man? The sun came out, and what did he do? He popped his head out.
Does that mean 6 more weeks of spring, or what happens here? I'm not too sure.
I would say it's even wet down in that hole as much as it's raining.
I do know when the alarm clock went off this morning, it felt like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, yes. I have to agree. But this is back to my routine now. Yes. This is what I trained for. This is the way I've had it planned.
322 laps to go, 122 laps to the halfway point, after which, if rain put a damper on this thing, the race would be able to be called official. It's Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, David Rudiman, Jamie McMurray, and Joey Logano as we get set to go back to green.
A lot of anticipation here. The sun's out. Rubber got washed off again. A lot of anticipation. What's she going to be like now, especially with those first 4 cars? Remember, right side tires only for Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, David Rudiman, and Jamie McMurray.
Green flag. We're back underway in the Coca-Cola 600.
You know, a lot of times these guys will complain a little bit about the residue from the jet fuel. But I tell you what races I've watched lately, the track just seems to be like it would be really fast right now.
Here comes Rudiman for second on the inside.
You know, we just had started talking about him when that rain came. He started back in the 21st position, had just cracked the top 10. Rodney Childers goes with 2 right side tires. Here he is battling for second with Carl Edwards.
But the cars with 4 tires are closing in on that front group and in a hurry.
That's just the 2-tire deal right now to me, with the track the way it is, things change the way they are. That's a short-term gain for just a really bad long-term loss in my mind. I know it looks good right now.
Casey Kane and Jimmy Johnson on the move, closing up on the leaders.
Tell you, another car on the move is that 48 car of Jimmy Johnson. I think they were glad to be able to get to pit road and get 4 tires and more adjustments on this Lowe's car.
Thinking about 3 wide here.
Yeah, a lot of slicing and dicing back in here right now, as you can see.
And it's Casey Kane who moves up into 5th in the number 9.
Ooh, that 48 car's got a nice run here off.
Boy, 3 wide though, off turn 4.
3 wide in the middle, 3.
Something's got to give, boys.
Still in the middle, you're clear high.
I think McMurray learned his lesson from practice Saturday.
Krista?
Mike, Larry, Darrell, you guys have been talking about the 2 tires versus 4 tires decision for Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. When we talked to him there during that brief rain delay, you heard Jimmy talk about that he dared his team to loosen his car up. It was just way too tight in practice, and yeah, it was very loose. So not only was the 4 tires he took important, it was important for them to tighten up his car too.
Yeah, Krista, I think he took those 2 tires earlier, and that did work on that 48 car. So he backed that strategy up a little bit.
Second place battle, you're right in the middle of it. There is David Rudiman just ahead. Carl Edwards, his Ford in the middle.
Don't overdrive your entry, you look good like that.
And Joey Logano, the rookie.
But Joey Logano, he's got his hands full of that 48 car. Jimmy Johnson that we just spoke about, as Johnson has cracked the top 5, working on 4th place Logano.
I got to quit looking at the 4th turn. I got to look at the 1st turn, because about half the cars come off turn 4. You can see the whole number on the side of it.
Next week, we're at Dover International Speedway in Delaware. The Autism Speaks 400. A great race to end the NASCAR on Fox portion of this 2009 season, presented on Fox by McDonald's.
Excited to get there, Mike. Got a brand new pit road, something we've been complaining about and asking for a long, long time. I hear it's primo.
Boy, Casey Kane, Larry, has tried every groove on this racetrack in the last 2 or 3 laps.
Well, he
found one he liked.
Yeah, he just got by the 20 car of Logano, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact Logano got a little out of shape right in the middle of 1 and 2, and Casey went to the high side in 1 and 2, just like he is in 3 and 4.
Look who's coming behind them. Matt Kenseth in yellow and green, and Juan Pablo Montoya there in the red and white Target car. They have made a quick march up to the back of this lead pack. Kenseth won the first 2 races of the year, Daytona and California, winless since, as he told us during the rain delay.
Boy, that's frustrating off turn 2 over there. You can make such great time right into 1 through the middle of 1 and 2, but the guy just has a huge advantage off of turn 2, just not enough grip down low.
It looks like McMurray in that 26 car, they're paying the price for those 2 right side tires only. I'm with you, Darrell. I think I've seen enough. Right now, I don't want just 2 right side tires.
Larry, and you know, I mean, that could work out good for you later on today, but I think with this track getting washed off, not having any rubber in it, you need to keep 4 fresh tires on your car right now.
Look at Kenseth, though. In that 17, he is picking off, Darrell, a car, a lap, and then some.
Yeah, he's in a hurry. He must have radar in his car.
Now watch what just happened in turn 4 to Kyle Busch, running 1.2 seconds ahead of Rudiman all by himself.
Now what did I just tell y'all? Stop watching turn 4. Because
right.
About 2/3 of the cars come through there, or something like that happens almost every lap.
Yeah, because he gave up almost a second on that last lap back to David Rudiman in that 00 car with that happening.
And a race car will do that, Larry. You know this. It's almost like you're driving that thing, everything is perfect. It's like someone flipped the switch and the handle just goes right away that quickly.
Well, I don't think we stress enough where that happened. That car's still well over 150 miles an hour.
Kyle Busch's lead is stabilized. It's a 2.5 over David Rudiman, Carl Edwards, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane. Trying to catch race leader Kyle Busch. David Rudiman came off the corner and got into the wall and has fallen from 2nd to 4th. Watch the 00.
Larry, I think one thing that we probably have failed to really recognize is right now this is a sunny and the sun's shining down on the racetrack. This sucker's pretty hot and slick right now.
Not a lot of grip.
Matt, is Rudiman's car okay?
Well, Mike, they're talking about it on the radio right now. The only thing he said earlier was that the car was just so free on entry. Remember, he took 2 tires on that stop. Not a lot of conversation since he smacked the wall, but we're listening in.
Yeah, right now, the only car that 2 tires has worked out for is the guy leading the race, Kyle Busch in the 18.
Greg Biffle has been trying to get back to the front. Dick Berggren.
Well, he's right now looking to get into the pits, Mike, because Biffle believes he has a flat tire. They're trying to decide if that flat is on the right or on the left.
Doc, I got to tell you, I think this racetrack right now is throwing these guys a curve. I think the cars are sliding around quite a bit more than they have been all morning, and I think this track is really slick. I think it's confusing some of these drivers and crew chiefs.
Dale Jr., meanwhile, has the most ill-handling car on the racetrack. He has fallen to 42nd, last car on the lead lap, and this has happened repeatedly over the past 5 or 6 laps.
Just look at him saw on that wheel. There's no way you can look. He's got 2 hands full. Left, right, left, right. That is definitely a military car.
Now in the last restart, here's how he got a little damage to the back of the car. Kind of a little, he shifted and Clint Boyer got in the back of him.
I mean, take a look. What's going on?
There's no way you can drive a car like that. I'd be bringing that thing on pit road and saying, you need to work on this bad boy.
I mean, he's running 32 80s and 90s, and right now our leader's running 31 40s and 50s.
Now, traditionally, drivers who have handling difficulties won't make that pit stop until the car is passed by the leader and goes 1 lap down. Why is that?
Well, you're hoping for that caution. You're just hanging on, saying maybe, just maybe, with as hot and slick as this racetrack is.
Caution.
But God is really confused right now, because a minute ago you were praying for it to stop raining, and now you're praying for it to rain. So I'm really getting confused.
All right, all 42 cars on track are on the lead lap. 1 car is in the garage area, out of the race. Mike Bliss with a driveline vibration on his 09. That is the only retiree. At 100 laps, we are 1/4 distance in the Coke 600 as we watch the battle. Here, Carl Edwards moving up to 5th, and here comes Montoya, keeps coming.
I don't think this will be a battle for long, because what you have is 4 fresh tires on that 42 car versus 2 tires on the 00 and the 99.
Now, Carl had slipped to 6th and repassed Rudeman, and Montoya almost scrapes the wall.
He made a hole up there. That looked like the All-Star race when Ryan Newman went shooting off turn 2 there.
And look at the run he got down the back straightaway. We know he's going to go to the high side. You're going to see Edwards at the bottom in the 99. Montoya has been at the top of the racetrack since the drop of the green flag at both ends, and you can see the run he gets off the corner that carries him down the straightaway.
I think that we've got to go to break. I think when we come back, we're going to have a race for the lead. I believe you're right.
Jimmy Johnson is coming toward the lead, and his teammate Mark Martin has come from the back halfway through the field, overcoming that wheel that got away.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Verizon Wireless. Get the inside track from Penske Racing and race analysis, plus highlights and high-speed action, all on VCast from Verizon Wireless, America's largest, most reliable wireless network.
108 laps complete at Lowe's Motor Speedway. 292 to go to make up 600 miles in this afternoon's event that had a red flag of 57 minutes for a thunder shower. And now moving on up. Some drivers like it hot. One of those is David Gilliland. The 71 picked up a sponsor for this race from CompUSA.com. And boy, David's marching toward the front.
Yeah, I mean, he started back in the 29th position, and right now he's almost up in the top 15, just about 15 seconds behind leader Kyle Busch in his 71 car.
Krista?
Well, David Gilliland did not like this car in practice, but right from the start of this race, he said, this is a totally different car. I love it. In fact, just a few laps ago, he said, and I quote, this is the best car I've had all year.
And I want to stress again, this race team, they missed the Daytona 500. They didn't race their way in, put David Gilliland in its car. Race number 2, they have qualified for every single race since showing up at Auto Club Speedway.
Well, I know why he loves that car, Larry. He turns it to the bottom, and it hunts that white line. And that's a comfortable car to drive for a driver.
Now, Gilliland is 16th. Just ahead of him, our pole sitter, Ryan Newman. And Newman had to overcome an issue between the tire changer and the jackman on one stop. And Matt, well, he's halfway to the front. He's 15th.
Mike, he's coming, And if you listen to his comments on the radio, very similar to what you're hearing up and down pit road from the other teams. Whatever issue that you had, it really is magnified now that the sun is blazing hot on this racetrack. For Newman, he says his car is tight. The harder he tries to push it, the tighter it definitely seems to get. Tony Gibson's going to try to improve that car with a wedge adjustment on the next stop, but he's definitely on the move in the 39.
You just saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. in that 88 car go a lap down. Ryan Newman's one car that had a problem on pit road. The other car that had a problem was Mark Martin on that last caution at lap 72. The tire got away, had to restart dead last. He's been marching his way back. Right now he's about a half a lap down to leader Kyle Busch, but he is back inside the top 25 and 25th. This is a car that certainly could use a caution to catch back up.
Things are tightening up in the front, Larry. The 48's about to chase down the 18, and here comes the 9 and the 83. Not far behind. I think those two tires on the 18 car are starting to hurt him just a little bit at the end of this run.
Well, the good news is we're about 15 to 18 laps away. If we stay caution-free, which what would start to cycle through green flag pit stops, remember, in our FedEx Understanding the Race, we always see at least one set of green flag pit stops in this Coca-Cola 600.
And then the 18 is really the only car that's taken two tires and gotten away with it.
Right. Here's Vickers going downstairs against Casey Kane.
That's a pretty fast hot rod.
Boy, he got a run off that corner right there.
Pretty fast car.
Third place there, and Vickers in a flash catches Jimmy Johnson. This is for second.
I think you'll see a lot of guys that'll run the top of 1 and 2 like you see here, and they really like the bottom of 3 and 4. A lot of grip down on that white line in 3 and 4.
You know, Mike, you mentioned that Mike Bliss is in the garage area, I think, with maybe some brake issues. We already heard that Kyle Busch very early in the race was complaining with brakes. When I look at the 9 car of Casey Kane right behind this group, Kenny Francis in that group after practice on Saturday replaced everything on that car as far as the brake system. Wow. They had brake problems on Saturday, so I know this is a huge relief to that group.
Well, it's 600 miles here, and this car, you use more brake with this race car than the car that we used to run, the older car. And so you've got to have a pretty good package here. Can't come with that super speedway stuff like we're accustomed to.
And for Casey Kane, didn't we learn that next week at Dover, this team, Richard Petty Motorsports, the Gillette team, will debut the new Dodge engine package. The Penske team has been running it, and they will have it for not every race, but some races starting next week at Dover.
I think a couple of things is going on with this 9 car. I think they're building lighter race cars. Yeah, all the cars have to weigh the same, but they're able to put more lead in the right place. I know that's the case with this car they have here, but there's no question when you look at the Penske's performance that the new Dodge engines has definitely made a difference.
Kane battling Juan Pablo Montoya. His Earnhardt Ganassi Chevy running very well today in 4th place. Dick?
He sure is, Mike, and it was his best ever qualifying effort. Montoya timed into this event in the 9th position. Turns out Lowe's Motor Speedway is the 2nd worst track in terms of their finishing position. Of all the tracks Montoya runs, only Michigan is worse. So they are a bit surprised that they're running well. Their entire focus is on finishing well enough in every single race, including this one, to make the chase. They have to finish 15th or better in order to do that. They have never done it here. They have crashed in all 4 races Montoya has run here at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Well, Doc, when you think about it, he won at Monaco. He's won at Indy. I'm sure it'd be kind of fun for him to say, I also won the Coke 600.
Kyle Busch, your leader. Brian Vickers closing in as we cross toward 120 laps.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Toyota, moving forward. By Taco Bell, think outside the bun. By Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. It'll change the way you experience the race. And by Lowe's, for all your home improvement needs. Lowe's, let's build something together.
124 laps complete. Brian Vickers took the lead from Kyle Busch on lap 120. And right now, only 3 drivers are lapping this track under 30 seconds. There's Vickers, along with Kyle Busch, and 5th place Casey Kane. I'm sorry, their fastest laps under 30 seconds. Right now, nobody's near that. Everybody's running the high 31s and low 32s at this point. Here's the pass for the lead.
It's kind of like we say about this car, Mike. It doesn't matter how fast you're going, you're just faster than everybody else.
That 83 is definitely in that category, Mike. He's actually the only car that's running in the 31-second bracket right now as we're closing in on what will be some green flag pit stops shortly.
And the pit road is dry, so all the work they did, and here comes the 88 finally. He's got to come to pit road or wreck that thing. I think that's the 11 right behind him. Got a battle.
Montoya in the 42. The Colombian racing Kyle Busch for 2nd place. This race is 600 miles long. Montoya, if you had an odometer in his car, is going to run about 620. He's up right up near the wall.
Yeah.
Every single lap he's running way up on the outside. Denny Hamlin has come to pit road. Matt?
And John Iker has already completed the chassis adjustment. They pull a spring rubber out of the left rear. Jonathan Sherman hits the lugs. He was loose on exit, tight across the center.
Hamlin was running 11th at the time of his pit stop.
And pulling that rubber out will make that car cut through the center of the corner much, much better. Get a little weight off that left rear tire.
Marcus Ambrose on pit road. Joe Nemechek. Casey Mears.
I'd say the 18 car is setting up for to make a pit stop. I think that's why he let Montoya get off his back bumper.
Also Kevin Harvick, top of your screen. That's Joe Nemechek going out, the blue car at the bottom.
Like Greg Biffle's on pit road.
And Elliott Sadler. Now, apparently there's a radio communication difficulty with Martin Truex because Kevin Mannion, his crew chief, has requested NASCAR to black flag the car to get it to pit road. Reed Sorensen's in, Clint Boyer, A.J. Allmendinger, who scraped the wall on the right side, and Kyle Busch. Michael Waltrip's in, and Matt Kenseth. Blocking up the brakes, Sam Hornish. He makes it.
I don't know if he did or not.
Dick.
Kyle Busch said that the car had gone noticeably free except in the center where it had become tight. He said all those changes happened as soon as the sun popped out full. Steve.
Kenseth had to get around A.J. Allmendinger. He said his car is loose on entry, tight in the center, and loose off. Chassis adjustment of 4 tires.
McMurray, Rudeman, Stremme, and Jimmy Johnson.
I'm not sure that Tony Raines may not be out of gas, but I think he's going to make it, Mike. He's on the apron of 3 and 4 right now.
Krista?
You see Jimmy Johnson in. He was still loose into the turns, but he said around lap 113 his car was getting tight in the center. Steve.
Tony Stewart tight from the center off. They're going to make a track bar adjustment and an air pressure adjustment. 4 tires for Tony Stewart. Tight from the center off, Krista.
Leader Brian Vickers bringing his car in. Brian Pemberton counting him in. Brian's car was getting extremely loose like others because the track is so slick, but the last thing he said on the radio is that it was very consistent. Brian Vickers extremely happy with this Red Bull Toyota. You see the crew coming around on the left side for the 4-tire change.
Jeff Gordon completing his stop. Montoya is in. Joey Logano's our new leader.
That's his 2nd consecutive race to lead lap. Led about 19 laps at Darlington a couple of weeks ago, and evidently it worked out. Getting the 1 car, Martin Truex Jr. just made his pit stop.
Matt?
And the 2 of Kurt Busch is in. Absolutely no grip. Breaking down each section of the racetrack. Chassis adjustments already completed as well as an air pressure to try to get that car the feel that he's looking for. Krista.
Joey Logano bringing the number 20, and you see him tilted just a little bit cattywampus into his pit stall. Joey Logano's car also loose, extremely loose under throttle with the slick race conditions. The crew putting the gas in, and he's down and away.
That'll put Dave Blaney into the lead. That Prism Motorsports entry. Running today as a teammate to the 00. And David Gilliland's great run comes undone by a penalty for too fast entering pit road.
When you're out there racing at over 180 miles an hour, and you've got to be down to 45 miles per hour and you get to pit road, and it happens a lot. Normally happens right there at the early part of pit road getting on.
Boy, Larry, I tell you, The 18 car made up a ton of time on that pit stop, in and out. As you know, the 83, Brian Vickers, was pretty far ahead of the 18 when the pit stop cycled started, and right now the 18 regained the lead.
And you know one thing I think that made a difference, Darrell, and even at a track this size, there were not many cars on pit road when he came. When Brian Vickers and Montoya and Jimmy Johnson came, there were probably double the cars on pit road.
I think another thing, I was watching him, what really helped him, his outlap. I mean, he came out of the pits like he was on a qualifying run.
All right, let's have a look at our green flag pit cycle, Larry, and see who benefited from this round of stops.
Now what this is from start finish line to 2 laps, including the pit stop. You can see there, this lap here, this includes coming on the pit road, stopping, doing the 4-tire stop, leaving pit road, back through 1 and 2, round 3 and 4, a total of 2 laps. Let's see of all of our leaders who was the fastest. Looks like Casey Kane in the 9 car of all of our guys was the fastest on those 2 laps, including the pit stop.
And the one number you don't see up there is the 83 of Brian Vickers, and that's why he's no longer leading. Jeff Gordon just got in the back of somebody in turn 1. I think that was Marcus Ambrose. No spin, no caution, no harm, but Ambrose was there where Jeff wanted to go. Traffic jam Memorial Day weekend. It happens all across America, but here it happens at 190 miles an hour. When we went to break, Kyle Busch had a lead of over half a second on Brian Vickers, and Vickers has run him down.
Vickers' car is fast. 18's fast for a few laps, but then Vickers' car is really good on the long run. Same thing we saw in this car in Atlanta. Hadn't been a late caution in Atlanta, I believe Vickers had the car to beat Kurt Busch. Today it looks like the same kind of setup. Really good over the long haul.
Now just ahead, the 98 of Paul Menard and the 43 of Reed Sorensen. And Menard and Sorensen both trying to stay on the lead lap here.
Yeah, now that we've had this long green flag run, we've put several cars a lap down. We have 29 cars on the lead lap, and that would include the 98 car of Paul Menard.
Kyle goes low and Brian goes high.
Menard gets up out of the way to let Kyle go by, and he runs right up in front of Brian Vickers.
You know, Darrell, we were talking at break, a couple of cars not far out in front of Kyle Busch, the 18 car. A couple of those Hendrick cars, they're on the verge of going a lap down. One would be Jeff Burton in the 24, or Jeff Gordon in the 24 car. The other would be Mark Martin in the 5 car.
Steve, what's up with Jeff Gordon?
Mike, the comment that he made a moment ago was his car was ridiculously tight in traffic.
And see, early in the race, he was sideways loose. Now, I think traffic being part of the key, which this car, this team, they fight that a lot, Darrell.
Okay, so what's happened to our weather?
Yeah, we've got shade.
Going back to overcast again. And there's some dark clouds looming over here off the first and second turn, so I think temp's gone down quite a bit. What a great battle for the lead right here between these two Toyotas.
And this is the first time, boy, you could see that 18 car really wiggle up there in 3 and 4. This is the first time they've kind of been on equal ground as far as their 4 tires.
Yeah,
well, fresh tires.
That 83's just got the long run set up. It's really working good for him.
And that lap, he was about half a second quicker than Kyle Busch, and Brian Vickers takes the lead for the second time today. Vickers out of Thomasville, North Carolina. Former champion of what was the NASCAR Busch Series, came to the Sprint Cup Series in that same organization, Hendrick Motorsports, and is now the lead driver over Red Bull.
If he hadn't lost that wheel here 2 years ago, that's another time he had a race won here. Lost the left rear wheel and ended up crashing, but had a bad fast car that day.
You know, with the front wheel black and the back wheel red, that's not a mistake or a mismatched set of wheels and tires. That is part of their graphics scheme.
Got to make sure the bull's completely red. They only do that with their race tires.
Martin Truex running in 17th position, Matt.
Mike, radio communication has been reestablished after he was shown the black flag. He finally was able to talk to his team because he was on the wrong channel. He said that something fell or something bumped the radio inside the car and went from channel 1 to channel 2. So when he saw that, he started playing with the radio, and then he was able to hear communication. So they're good to go now. Their biggest issue is trying to tighten up this race car. Once again, after their last stop, the initial laps on this run, the car still very loose.
Tony Stewart just passed Carl Edwards, and that moves Stewart into the 9th position. Drops Edwards to 10th. 148 laps complete in the Coca-Cola 600. Brian Vickers now trying to pull away from Kyle Busch.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Coca-Cola Zero. Real Coke taste and 0 calories.
Last night, the Coca-Cola 600 fell victim to rain. Today we battled through morning rain and then one thunder shower after the start of the race. But other than 2 stoppages for rain and the Kevin Harvick crash in turn 1, that plus the competition yellow, it's been green all the way through. As Casey Kane, Jimmy Johnson right there go at it for 4th place. We are 46 laps from the halfway point that would make the race official. 246 laps from the checker.
You know, Mike, if you have a good race car, just say like Kyle Busch and Brian Vickers and some of the other guys in the top 10, weather doesn't affect it much. Might slow it down a teeny bit. Tires even, you put 4 tires, 2 tires, might slow it down a teeny bit. But if you're sitting right there with a car that's marginal, not very good, and you do anything at all, it can go it'll fall off the face of the earth.
And Larry, we've been saying for at least the 30 years I've been calling these races that there is no more weather sensitive racetrack in all of NASCAR than this one.
It doesn't matter what car or what tire we bring to Lowe's Motor Speedway. It doesn't matter the old asphalt or this new asphalt. Trust me, a cloud covering can completely change the way that your car drives.
Well, I think I know why. And of course, I think I know why that 42 is getting ready to go by the 18. Juan Pablo going by Kyle here on the outside. Kyle got hung up in traffic back there. But Larry, the sun beams down on this racetrack in turns 3 and 4 all day long from high noon on. And that's what makes this track so treacherous.
But I'm going to tell you, that 42 car, he qualified great. He qualified in the top 10, and he has been a solid top 5 car through the red flag, through the cautions, through the green flag pit stop that we had.
That pass was set up by traffic, though, and Kyle used good judgment. Let him go.
P2, leader running 64, 65 for you with a pass.
Montoya now 2nd. His teammate Truex is 17th. So what last year was a 4 and a 3 car team, Earnhardt Incorporated and Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates has now condensed and combined into a 2-car team. They did run some races earlier this year with Eric Almirola in the 8 car, but Montoya has shown he is going to be a factor in this 600.
And you know, I talked to Brian Patty, his crew chief, just a few weeks ago. They made the swap after the merger from Dodge to Chevrolet, and he said the biggest difference in our program has been the Childress Earnhardt engine package, the Earnhardt Childress engine package. He said what a difference that has made from what we were running last year with the Dodge program.
And I think that's what we're seeing with the 9 car and in the Gillette cars or the Richard Petty cars this year. I think that engine is hurting them. I'm anxious to see the 9 car next week at Dover with the new Dodge engine, see how it performs.
Let's have a look, courtesy of Terminator Salvation, of our point standings. There is the top 12 as they run, not as they started the race, but as they run. And look down there at 11th place. That would be Montoya moving into the top 12.
He would be replacing Carl Edwards.
And just outside the top 12, here are the drivers fighting back to try to make the chase for the Sprint Cup. Terminator Salvation is playing everywhere. Check it out at a theater near you.
Mike, I think anywhere from maybe Clint Boyer 17th or 88 back. From there up to the top 7 or 8, there's a battle right there that could go either way anytime.
Brian Vickers leading Juan Pablo Montoya by 2.2 seconds in the Coca-Cola 600 on Fox. We are under caution at Lowe's Motor Speedway on our most solemn of holidays, Memorial Day. There is no crash, no blown engine, and no rain. NASCAR, in what I think is an extraordinary gesture, has elected to wave the caution flag so that as we come to the 3 o'clock hour, the time at which our president has asked all Americans to honor all of those who have served in the defense and protection of our country, NASCAR is going to bring the cars around to the front straightaway, park them, shut them off. All the fans are to their feet. All of the flags have been lowered to half-mast, and all the crewmen have come to the edge of their pit boxes all along pit road to aid in this solemn salute to all of those who have served. So we're about 45 seconds to 3 o'clock. And we'll all stand silent in remembrance and tribute to all the great soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, reservists, National Guard, and all of those who have, throughout the history of this country, taken up arms to win and protect the freedom of Americans and like-minded peoples around the globe. We'll ask you too for a minute of silence.
Generations as well as to our day. A moment of silence, please.
As the field refires, let's join Dick Berggren on pit lane.
Military connections run deep in the NASCAR community. Jim Parrott, part of Mark Martin's refueling team, lost his brother Michael in November 2005, killed by a sniper in Iraq. Michael Parrott had signed up for a second tour of duty after serving in Kuwait. He wanted to go back. He was 50 years old when his life was taken from him. Matt Yoakum.
Dick, the military holds a special place in the Deal family hearts. Barry Deal, longtime NASCAR crew member. He's third-generation military. From 1984 to 1990, he was in the Virginia National Guard, Engineering Battalion D. His brother, Chris, he served in the Army. And then their father, Jimmy, served in the Army as well, a tour of duty in Vietnam from 1965 to 66. In fact, he left when Barry was just 2 months old. And then their grandfather, Alan, war hero. He served in World War II in the Army. He landed at Normandy in June of '45, and he was awarded the Bronze Star. So for all the families, whether your name is Aldous, Keller, or whomever, we thank you for your support through the years.
You know, Mike, sometimes you say, why do we have to run this race on Monday? Why did it have to get rained out? I think today it was so we could do this, so we could pay tribute to those that mean so much to all of us that have served in the military, that are serving as we speak, that represent our country so well. And this was a great opportunity to honor all those folks. And even though it's a small thing, it's a small way of doing it, this race is not nearly as important as the race we got going on all over the world.
This time around, pit road's open. Krista.
Mike, with weather approaching, Brian Vickers and his crew know this could be their money stop. Brian Vickers complaining just a little bit loose into one and off of two. Steve.
4 tires for Matt Kenseth. He says that he's been loose. Dick.
And 4 tires for Montoya, who is having his best run of the year. Matt.
Primarily tight and loose on exit for Kurt Busch. 4 tire change. Track bar adjustment completed as well.
Looks like to me everybody was kind of over the 2-tire deal. I didn't see a single soul go with just 2 right side tires that time.
And that 18 was on it, Larry. That was a great stop.
Well, I stand corrected. We talked about Jeff Gordon, the 24 car, just about to get lapped before that caution. Steve Letarte, they rolled the dice with just 2 tires. That's how he picked up 12 spots.
The Coca-Cola 600 is sponsored by Gillette Fusion, Gillette's closest, most comfortable shave. By Ask.com, where do NASCAR fans get answers? Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR. By DirecTV, if you call yourself a sports fan, you gotta get DirecTV. And by Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. It'll change the way you experience the race. .600 miles, grueling test of endurance, speed, and courage. Memorial Day weekend, we remember our men and women of the military who serve and have served in our great country.
At Lowe's Motor Speedway, Charlotte, North Carolina, 168 laps complete, 232 to go, and 32 to halfway. The radar shows thunder showers throughout the afternoon in the region, and the possibility of rain looming off on the horizon to the south. We'll be right back. This is NASCAR on Fox.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is delivered by UPS. Watch David Reagan compete with the delivery drivers of UPS and Maximum Driver. Go to racing.ups.com.
Getting ready to go back to green and perhaps one lap here at Lowe's Motor Speedway. 177 complete, 223 to go. Here's a question from Ask.com. What tracks have facilities where you can live year-round? Get the answer now at Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge. You could win daily prizes or a trip to Talladega from the official search engine of NASCAR.
If we don't get out of this booth pretty soon, this is going to be one of them.
There's Bobby Labonte. He's on the lead lap in 24th spot.
Kind of anxious to see what's going to happen with that 24 car of Jeff Gordon when we drop the green flag. Sitting back there in the 8th spot, Steve Letarte decided to maybe go and roll the dice and just put 2 right side tires. Really one of the few that I saw that time with this many laps to go that went with just 2 right sides.
I think that's a guy that's racing the halfway. That's what I think. I think when he saw that rain coming, I'm thinking he might have let that kind of have an influence on his decision.
26 cars on the lead lap, including David Reagan, who got the free pass. Max Pappas, the world-class road racer from Como, Italy, has taken his car to the garage area, and we're ready for our Claret and Clear to drive restart with Claret and Clear indoors and out.
Boys, we're good to go from here on. There's no more. I look out there, I see blue skies way over there where we've been seeing rain all day. I'm feeling good about this thing now.
Pull that recoil starter and get that vortex spinning.
Yeah, we've had lunch, get dinner ready now, and we're going to finish this thing off.
Kyle Busch, Casey Kane, Jimmy Johnson, Carl Edwards, Juan Pablo Montoya. Green flag.
Got David Gilliland in that 71 car up there. How he got a lap down. He had that pit road speeding penalty after being up in the top 20 for most of the race.
Well, he's not going anywhere right now, Larry. I don't know if he's got a flat tire, missed a gear, but man, he backed everybody up.
Yeah, he stacked that whole line as they're 3 wide already over in turn 2.
Wow, Montoya's a rocket on restarts. Up there on the outside, right up against the bumper of Carl Edwards. Now gives Carl a little room.
Ooh, yikes. Oh, boy, don't look back, boys. That's about as wadded up as I've seen them today on a restart.
Well, everybody's racing hard to halfway, and then we'll see what happens. Here's Logano on the outside of Ambrose, and there's Kurt Busch caught in the middle.
It's my favorite thing.
That hole closed up in a hurry.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle.
Well, you know that car we're looking at right in front of him, that 83 car, Brian Vickers. He's trying to get back to the front. There's Joey Logano and that 20 car, the rookie, right on the rear bumper of Montoya in the 42.
This may well be the hardest 20 laps these drivers run today. Second place, Jimmy Johnson goes for it as Logano passes Montoya. And Johnson works over Casey Kane.
I think this is one of those times we're going to find out how good that 48 car can be, because he thinks, you know, halfway I got to get the lead just in case.
Well, you don't think they've stepped it up? 6 of our top 7 just ran their fastest lap of the race right there as Rudiman and Kurt Busch get mighty close to each other coming off turn 4.
You know, I believe Rudiman's car, he's been in the wall. I just don't think it's driving good enough for him to be racing maybe as hard as he's trying to race.
Now Ambrose, who was a lap down, might have got up and into Montoya just a bit down in turn 1, but no big damage. As there's Allmendinger, white and green alongside David Rudiman. Now Allmendinger is 1 lap down. Allmendinger almost stuffed it in the turn 4 fence that time.
I think this racetrack has really picked up a lot of grip. I believe that little rain shower, it's cloudy and overcast. Temps are down a little bit. I believe we picked up a little grip. Seeing a little more racing going on than we've seen earlier in the day.
He talked about Marcos Ambrose in that 47 car. What he's working so hard right now is to stay the first car a lap down. Should we get a caution, he'd get the free pass back on the lead lap.
Well, he's hanging pretty good, actually. Hanging right there with those fast cars. Doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, he's just ahead of 7th place Matt Kenseth in the 17. And now goes after Montoya. Nothing there.
You can look underneath coming off turn 2, but boy, it's hard to make it stick.
Kenseth is going to make that pass off turn 4.
Matt just slid it in front of Marcos to get that spot away from him, move forward.
Boy, Matt Kenseth in that 17 car, his car is right around the bottom, actually left side tires below the line, and he's going after Montoya now.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about the 17 car is he's pretty good on the short run, been falling off a little on the longer runs.
He passes Montoya, and 3 wide with Jamie Mack again in the middle. He's been there before. Yeah. And this time he gets off the corner ahead of Mark Martin and Kurt Busch. But here's the tail of the tape. 6 of the top 7 cars just ran their fastest lap of the race. Every one of them in the top 7 except race leader Kyle Busch. Fast cars, fast track, racing our way at least to halfway. What do you say? How about a Memorial Day? Crank it up.
defense up in turn number 3 reports that car has gone very tight.
And I just think that's the grip level in the racetrack that's picked up a lot. If you've been loose, that's really going to help your car. It's going to make it fast, but if you're tight, it might not help that so much.
You know, I believe a car that has made improvements steadily all day long is this car we're riding with, the 99 car, Carl Edwards, sitting up there after starting 19th in the top 5. Had a sandwich during a little red flag. He's ready to go here.
He's in 4th place.
You know, you got to figure Carl Edwards is going to break out of somewhat of a slump before too long. I mean, you're talking about a cat that won 9 races last year.
And a lot of them on tracks like this, 1.5 mile tracks.
1.5 miles.
I'm sure it's coincidence, but Olympic and now Dancing with the Stars champion gymnast Shawn Johnson was here, and Kyle Petty had her do a backflip off the door of one of their driving school cars. So there's already been a backflip done. If Carl wins, there'll be another one. Matt?
Mike, two crew members are up on the wall. Conversation from Kurt Busch. Bad vibration on the right front. Seem to be getting worse, so they're expecting to service this car here shortly.
And normally when you get a vibration, that's an indication that just possibly that right front wheel may be loose.
Yeah, he's dropping down. He's coming in this time by. He's not going to play around. Here he comes on pit road. He's definitely got a serious problem.
We're a long way from what would be green flag pit stops, probably about 30 to 35 laps from now.
Kurt had been running 15th when he dropped to the inside and came to pit road under the green flag. He'll lose at least 1 lap and perhaps 2, Matt.
And as they go to work servicing the Blue Deuce, the biggest thing now for crew chief Pat Tryson is to keep his crew members and his driver, keep their heads in the game, not let this beat them and take them out of their game any more than what they've already done themselves. Keep your car in position and try to capitalize on the lucky dogs and get back in this, because it looks like we're going to have a lot more laps left to run.
Well, they are assuming that the vibration was in the right side tires because they went with only 2 rights. They did not go with all 4 tires. A lot of times I've got a vibration, I got to come to pit road. I want to make sure I get it first time by doing all 4.
Yeah, that can really bite you, because if it's not the right front, then you're going to have to come back in.
Jeff Hammond.
Hey, Daryl and Larry, I was in the garage area yesterday when the 2 car came through inspection. They found him just a little bit wide on his tread width, and they made him take a little bit of the wheel spacer off the left front and the right front, which added a little bit more thread to both sides of that race car, and that could be one of the reasons why they didn't get that right front tire tight enough, as they got extra thread than what they weren't planning on for this race.
And Jeff, NASCAR found the same thing with his teammate, the number 12 David Stremme, had to make that same alteration.
And Mike, we've talked about it all year long. Now, every time you give a half a thread more to these tire changers, sometimes it's a rhythm thing, and if they don't stay on that stud long enough, they don't get that wheel tight enough.
Yeah, that's what they've been fighting all year long, and then you add more thread by taking wheel spacer off. That just compounds the problem. This is the battle for third. We saw Carl Edwards just a little bit ago right up there in amongst that 9 car. He keeps fighting his way back on the bottom, and Casey Kane's right up at the top of the track in 9.
Matt has more on Kurt Busch's pit stop.
Looking over the wheels, might have an issue with the right front, but Pat Tryson told his driver the wheels look pretty good that came off, but they are still looking at the wheel on that right front.
Well, what will give them an indication possibly that the wheel is loose is the lug holes on the wheel will be a little bit egg-shaped or oblong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's no problem to tell if the wheel was loose or not. And now, he didn't run very long, so it's not going to eat the wheel up like it might if it had been run a while. But obviously, you can look at it and see if that thing's been wobbling around or not.
Well, Kurt Busch has fallen 1 lap and a lot of distance down to his younger brother, who leads this race. In fact, he's in danger of going 2 laps down.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars in front of him that are a lap down, and this is the battle for 10th between Brian Vickers and that 83, who has absolutely went nowhere since that last pit stop. Tony Stewart, who we talked to during the break, up there trying to get to the top 10 in this 14 car.
Well, I know it doesn't seem like it, but we're just 1 lap away from halfway. So he's got a lot of time to get that lap back in the distance.
8th place, Denny Hamlin. blasts past Jeff Gordon, who tries to retake the spot on the bottom.
But I believe this is definitely possibly, we need to run a few more laps, I think, to have a long run. That maybe the best the 24 car has been, because remember, at the start of the race, very, very loose. Then as Steve Burns reported, it went very tight. The car would not turn at all.
Casey Kane is the new second-place car in the Coke 600. He passed Jimmy Johnson 2 laps ago, and he's now 2.4 seconds behind Kyle Busch, the race leader.
I'll tell you, Casey. I just like the way that car looks, Larry, and I really think that when we wind down in this race, I believe it's going to be a battle between the 9 and the 18.
I think this 9 car, even though they did not have a strong showing in that all-star race last Saturday night, I think just talking to Kenny Francis, they learned a lot of things not to do. You don't always learn things to do, but you do learn things not to do. And remember, he won this race a year ago. Has a couple of wins here at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Well, it's a lot different racing the car 600 miles than it is running in one of those all-star races. This is when you have to have a good handling car, a good running car, and you got to have good pit strategy. There was no strategy last week.
Jimmy Johnson running in third. They tried the 2 tires early. That didn't work out all that well.
I just think this is one of the coolest paint schemes that we've got going on here today. You know, for years they ran what they called the Power of Pride paint scheme on Memorial Day weekend, talking about the 48. And they didn't run it last year, and Chad Canals had a military personnel come up to him at Pocono and said, you know, why did you guys not run that paint scheme Memorial Day? We always look forward to that. So Chad Canals said, you know what, we're going to work on that for 2009. And that paint scheme actually is derived from a paint scheme that his dad used to race up in the Illinois area on the short tracks.
Johnson third, Carl Edwards fourth, Logano fifth, Montoya sixth. Darrell, this car doesn't seem to be quite as good as it was in the last segment of this race.
Well, we heard him say that it's just picked up a bad push, and he's having to ride around the top right now, and he's just not able to get back to the throttle quite as good as he could. And Matt looks to me like he had a short run car. He's falling back a little bit. What are they saying down there? Our Matt. Steve. All right,
Darrell, you're exactly right. Early in this run, Matt Kenseth said, I'm going to get what I can get while I can get it, because I'm going to get tight. Sure enough, just a lap ago, he said, I am way too tight now.
Yeah, Steve, I've been noticing he can go like crazy when they drop the green flag on 4 fresh tires, but it only lasts about 12, 15 laps, and he starts backing up. Here comes Brian Vickers chasing him down.
Vickers in 8th place.
Another car that's really fallen off the pace is Vickers' car, who was up there fighting for the lead and actually leading the race until we had that break for the rain.
Jeff Gordon now in 9th, has had an up and down day after starting 3rd.
But you know, Vickers, back to Brian Vickers, he's showing just what he showed before that last caution. He's about 2/10 faster than anybody with that 83 car as we're closing in on about 15 laps before green flag stops.
Good long run car. We see that all the time here with him.
Denny Hamlin has moved back into the top 10. Hasn't shown the speed of his teammate Kyle Busch, but he's been right around the top 10 the whole day.
But what a day for Joe Gibbs Racing. All 3 cars right now in the top 10.
Tony Stewart is 11th, and early in the race, Steve Stewart was making a mad march to the front, but now he's pretty well settled right around 10th place.
Yeah, Mike, he's kind of stuck where he is right now. He's another guy facing a tight race car. He says, I'm a lot tighter on this run than I was the run before.
And I just think this track has just changed continuously all day long, as right now we've got this battle for 3rd between 3 cars, actually. Carl Edwards in the 99, Jimmy Johnson in the 48, and Joey Logano right behind him in that 20 car.
Krista?
Well, adding on Jimmy Johnson, I know the 3 of you were commenting on how he was snapping loose off of turn 4. I was down in Jimmy Johnson's pit stall, which is the first pit stall, the one right off of turn 4, and you could see that. He was trying to stick down to the bottom. You see him there with Joey Logano on the outside making the pass. And yeah, his car, the handling is just falling off for the 48. And Jimmy Johnson hasn't won here at this track. He calls it his house, 5 wins, but hasn't had one since the fall of '05. He said he's looking for some more of that magic from his house.
Yeah, ever since they repaved this place, Krista, they've lost a little something with this racetrack.
Yeah, he said that the bumps, believe it or not, that they had a really nice shock package and a setup that worked good through the rough surface. When they repaved this thing, and it's as smooth as it is now, not quite so good.
Let's pick up with Mark Martin there at 12th place. Martin has had to overcome a penalty for a tire that rolled out across pit road. And let's catch back up with our leader, Kyle Busch. Here's what happened a lap ago.
How hard does he try?
Whoa!
How hard does he drive? He's leading the race by a good, comfortable margin, but he's still going as hard as he can go.
Well, his lead is disappearing, and that's one reason why, Darrell. Here's Casey Kane, less than a second behind.
No question, the two best cars on the long haul is Casey Kane in this 9. We mentioned also Brian Vickers in that 83.
You may see a few raindrops on the lens here because that's what is being reported outside turn number 1. There's a little bit of rain. Thunder showers are going to plague us all day, as they have since noontime after the sustained rain of last night.
Casey Kane has not led this race today, so he'd love to get up there and get 5 points for leading the lap.
I think if we stay green here very long, he's going to do that with ease, because he is there, and that car is Casey's car is really handling well.
He's a quarter. Oh, and the caution is out for rain.
That's probably another reason both those boys had both hands and feet up on that steering wheel.
This is the 6th caution of the day and the 3rd for rain.
There, you just heard him say save fuel. Are we in that?
Well, here's the reason, Darrell. Yeah, we're about, I'm going to say 5 to 8 laps from what would be green flag pit stops. Well, here's the debate that most of these guys in the top 10 or 12 will have. Is that rain going to come here, and is that rain going to stay? That's why you've got to conserve fuel right now, even under caution.
Yeah, so you don't want to come to pit road maybe immediately. Maybe you want to wait.
No, just Saturday night in the nationwide race, everybody pitted on a caution but Mike Bliss. And Bliss and Brendan Gaughan, who was the free pass cars, were the 2 men left standing when the rains came. They finished 1-2.
Yeah, and that shot right there, that could have been from Friday. That could have been from Saturday. That could have been from Sunday, but I think it's from today.
This caution is a big benefit for Martin Truex, David Reagan, Robbie Gordon, and especially Jeff Burton, who were in danger of going a lap down. And it's a benefit to Marcus Ambrose, the first car 1 lap down. He will get the free pass.
And we saw him up there racing really, really hard, Marcus Ambrose, and it paid off for him.
And as close as these guys are on fuel, if you stay out now that they're running pace car speed around this racetrack, the fuel's going to run away from the pickup, so you'll probably see some of these guys that stay out down on the apron in the corners.
Larry, I got to come to pit road. I got to get my tires, because if I stay out and people behind me come in and then I got to come in later, I'm going to lose all my track position. I believe I can gamble and come on down and get my tires.
Now, unlike the last rainstorm, which was around 3 sides of the track, this one is primarily to the southwest. And pit road is open. Krista.
Casey Kane and his crew chief Kenny Francis trying to decide what to do, playing the rain game. They said if we stay out, everyone else is going to come in. So they decided to come in. You see the crew working on the car. Casey said the handling is fantastic. He wants to race. Steve.
Not fantastic for Matt Kent with Krista. He said this is the worst the car has been all day. I feel like I'm at Darlington. Dick.
Big discussion between Kyle Busch and his crew chief Steve Addington as to whether to pit or stay out. Addington made the call. Pit. They took 4. Matt.
Mike Ford looked at the radar. Curtis Markin, the spotter, looked at the skies. They don't feel like this will be a game changer. Should be a brief stoppage. That's why they hit pit road. Air pressure change, trying to free up this 11 car, which was in the 10th spot.
Ooh. David Ruderman and Ryan Newman stayed out along with some cars at the back.
They're standing in the window betting on rain's what they're betting on.
This is going to get really interesting as rain puts us under caution yet again.
The Coca-Cola 600 on Fox is sponsored by Coca-Cola. Collect the Coca-Cola cans of summer.
More raindrops coming at us from the southwest here at Lowe's Motor Speedway. We mentioned David Ruderman, Ryan Newman stayed out. So did David Gilliland to be at the tail end of the lead lap, and Dave Blaney. Robbie Gordon also stayed out. He's now the 3rd place car. There is Gilliland in the 71.
You got to see this, what happened on pit road on this pit stop exchange here. Watch this 43. He's leaving his pit, hits that tire, and look where it goes. Bam.
Now that's about 70 to 80 pounds.
Yeah.
That hit that boy.
poor kid and he jumps up and he seems to be fine.
Upends a crewman on, I believe, the 34, Tony Raines' car. Dick Berggren.
Steve Addington is the crew chief for Kyle Busch. 2 questions for you. First, why pit? Second, why take 4 instead of 2?
Well, we couldn't go. Well, it's easy to have to pit because we couldn't go but 4 or 5 more laps there. And if it goes back green, you'll be in big trouble. But I knew some of them guys were going to gamble. But I don't think that NASCAR can call this race this early in the afternoon with lights here at Charlotte. And all these fans have stayed here an extra day to watch it, and they want to see the end of the race. So you look at the radar, the storms are in and out of here. So I think they will go back racing, and I think we'll be in good shape.
And he has a big computer right beside him that shows the weather radar, Mike.
So Steve Addington now becomes a salesman for getting this race restarted. But you see the tarps coming out for pit road.
Mike,
a little more rain.
Saturday night here, Kyle Busch had the best car and could have easily won the race if it had not rained. And Mike Bliss ended up being in the lead at the right time, and Kyle finished 3rd. And there's that young man. I'm thinking, he said, what was that hit me?
You know, one thing I want to point out about especially those top 3 cars of Rudiman, Newman, and Robbie Gordon is actually they came in right before we went back racing under that last caution red flag. So they actually have a little bit of cushion of fuel in their tanks. They could probably actually go another 15, 18 laps under caution.
Right. They have a total of 36 more laps on that tank of fuel than the rest of the field. So we'll see how this sorts out as we get a light sprinkle now at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Definitely a lucky dog right now.
Business, as in the rain, is picking up. It is raining harder out there right now.
Yeah, I think if I were David Rudiman, I'd be very confident that that trophy is going home with him. And what a special trophy for Michael and David to take up to MWR. They have such a great display of Michael's Daytona wins, right, and the interactive things they have up there, and this trophy will be the centerpiece of that place.
That pace car is now throwing up rooster tails out there in turn number 2 of water.
And you know, Mike, the thing I'm encouraged by, and I guess it's one reason I sure would love to get these last 173 laps in, is all of a sudden over the last 4 or 5 weeks of NASCAR on Fox at a lot of different racetracks, we've had some great racing. We've had great finishes, but we've had great racing. Look at what happened at Talladega. Look at the race at Richmond, at Darlington, the All-Star race. And whether we do or do not get these 173 laps in, it's the reason I can't wait to get to Dover, because Dover always lends to some great side-by-side racing.
Now, you've seen all these shots of David Rudiman and his crew, and there's one thing you have not seen, and that is a single umbrella.
Yeah, no kidding.
It might jinx what's going on.
No, you're singing in the rain right now. I'm telling you.
Gene Kelly and company.
That's it. When they call this thing, you're going to see them dancing in the rain. You're going to see Michael walking on water.
All right, they found an umbrella. Okay. But that's actually Dave Blaney's crew. That is not Michael Waltrip's crew. So we were fooled for a second there. Yeah, just trying to blend in.
I got a feeling they're going to have a lot of friends here in just a little while.
And umbrellas are not going to matter.
Nope.
It's raining again.
You know, we've talked about Robbie Gordon. We interviewed him, of course. You know, those guys, to me, it was not a gamble for what they did. They were about one of the last cars on the lead lap. And if Robbie indeed ends up finishing 3rd, it would be his best finish since Watkins Glen of 2005, where he finished 2nd. And when you look, it's probably, we'll check on this, other than road courses and restrictor plate racetrack, there's no telling how long it's been since Robbie Gordon had a top 5 finish at just a regular oval racetrack.
Well, we talk about Tony Stewart and what he's done over at Haas. You got to give Michael a lot of credit, guys. I mean, the way he started this deal off, and here he is right now going to celebrate his first victory as a car owner.
Should this race be called, David Rudiman will join an exclusive list of drivers who've scored their very first Sprint Cup victory in NASCAR's longest race, beginning with David Pearson in 1961.
Jeff Gordon in his 2nd year of Sprint Cup. Ray Evernham made the call late in the race to go with 2 tires when everybody else changed 4, and got him to victory lane for his first time.
I just want to know where Billy Badbutt is, because when him and
Tony,
when him and Rudiman go to victory circle together, Tony said when he ride with him, they obviously got it figured out. They got this figured out. I know that.
I can ride to perhaps ride to victory lane with him.
David says, come on. How much longer? How long?
These minutes seem like hours to him right now.
And not just for him and for that team, but for the folks who have braved the weather this day. Yeah. Some of them are sitting under the cover of the condos and VIP suites up high in the grandstand, but others have not abandoned their post in their reserve seats, hopeful of seeing this one through.
And let's don't forget our NASCAR on Fox crew. Yeah, you hear and you see the 9 of us announcers, but our cameramen, our runners, everybody that makes these broadcasts, there they are. They do not go away until we go off the air.
We don't have these pictures without those guys out there in the rain.
And it's the folks on the roof, in the pits, in the production trucks, in the TV compound, and all around this facility. It's over 200 people that work hard to bring you these shows on Speed TV during the early part of the weekend and here on Fox on Sunday and sometimes on. Is that a Hawaiian shirt? I think it was. There's a true optimist on that camera.
You know, talking about Michael, just think about Larry, 2 Daytona 500 trophies, and now with this win today, a Coke 600 trophy, yeah, they're coming to one of those guys that just wins the big ones.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, the word, if it comes, will likely come over the PA, and the voice we've been hearing all weekend is that of Ken Squire, who called so many of these races on other networks to everybody across America, from the Daytona 500 to the Coke 600, and he's been on the PA much of this weekend.
Kenley Dean.
Folks here at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Go away, Ty.
Kenley Dean Squire, the Milk Bowl.
How wet can it get?
You know, we were talking about running water earlier. There's Carl Edwards right now sitting in 4th in street clothes. This will be one of Carl's best finishes in quite a while.
When we went to caution for rain, it was Kyle Busch, Casey Kane. Carl was 3rd. Joey Logano was 4th. Juan Pablo Montoya, who I thought had a car capable of challenging for the win, he was in the 5th spot. Jimmy Johnson was 6th. Vickers, Jeff Gordon, Kenseth, and Hamlin were the top 10. And that changed almost completely around with those who chose to make pit stops and those who didn't.
What's that old saying? Where are they now?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question our 5 best race cars across the board, almost from the drop of the green flag, sitting 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th right now. Vickers, Kyle Busch, Kane, Montoya, and Logano.
2 drivers having an especially tough day here. Kevin Harvick. His car just did not seem right from the start. He got against Sam Hornish and then got into the wall twice, had to make heavy repairs and ended up 3 laps down. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., another car that just looked as if it had to be evil to drive, and the in-car camera, Darrell, just confirmed that. Jr. fought that car all afternoon, and he presently sits 38th, 2 laps down.
I don't want anybody to tell me he's not a good driver, because any lesser driver would have wrecked that car.
Would have spun it out several times.
I mean, those in-car shots we had of him fighting with that thing.
And I've got to say the hard luck driver of the day right now would be Kurt Busch. And that 2 car ran up in the top 10 for most of the event, sitting back in 37th right now. Had to come to pit road because of a vibration and put him way behind. So the good news is it looks like if the race did end, he would still stay 3rd in the Sprint Cup Series points.
And he was the point leader just a few races ago. So David Rudiman, if he wins this race,
there's Spanky.
He's already come off the roof.
Will come to within 6 points of getting back into the top dozen, and that's how many cars make the chase for the Sprint Cup.
And he runs good at Dover too. He ran great there in our truck, and he's run good there, really well there in the Nationwide car.
I want that back, Sean.
Sean's nickname is Spanky.
Okay.
Yeah, we're close to halfway
Lee
to that
White.
race to the chase.
That's Lee White there from Toyota. He's oversees the Toyota program for all the race teams.
Does it? Does it make my nose look any smaller?
Yeah, I guess if this indeed comes to fruition, this would be the first Toyota win that was not by Joe Gibbs Racing in Sprint Cup.
Yeah, you're right.
I want to tell you a little about David's dad. That 00 is what Buzzy Rudeman carried on his modified, racing out of New Jersey. The Dover brake car, metallic blue, white, red numbers, very much like David's. And where I grew up in New England and watched oval track racing in the early 70s, they had the All-Star League, and each track nominated 2 drivers as guaranteed starters for every All-Star League race. And Buzzy was always a guaranteed starter. And when he came to New England, whether he brought his own car or he used one of the local cars to take his guaranteed spot, Buzzy Rudeman was always a factor to win.
And you know how they got the number? When Grandpa walked into where they were working on the race car, and they said, "What do you think, Grandpa?" He said, "Looks like a bunch of nothing to me." So they put 00 on it. Double nothing.
I'm getting.
Hey, there he is, right there. Tony Stewart's buddy.
Billy Bunt.
Yeah, right now he's close to getting that last lap.
If you missed it, during one of the rain delays earlier, there was an exchange between David and Tony, and that fellow wanted to get a word in, and he and Tony had words. And then Tony invited him to go take a ride in the car with David because obviously they were thinking alike as to what should happen out on the racetrack.
You notice how this crowd keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, and wetter.
Yeah, there was only one person down there earlier, and it was David Rudeman.
David all by himself. He was out on an island, and it's a good thing. It's hard to feel pretty confident here, I think, boys.
Victory lane is being set up in anticipation of rolling a car out there, whether it's now or after 600 miles. And looking behind our grandstand to the west, there's blue sky. But looking to the south, there are still quite a few of these thunder shower systems that appear to be headed our way.
I'd really like to get this race over with on Memorial Day if at all possible.
Well, we do know that will happen. And we're off to Dover next weekend. Since we've passed halfway, this race will become official sometime today.
Well, they don't have to call it.
Oh no,
they don't have to. I mean, they have that option.
There are, counting David Gilliland, who did not pit and is on the tail end of the lead lap, 28 lead lap cars. Should we be able to go back to green at some point? But as you said, that crowd is gathering and getting bigger in hopes of an announcement from NASCAR. Now, it's always been NASCAR's theory on running races, and they're very consistent. They won't start the race unless they believe they can run the full distance, the advertised distance, and they'll make every effort to get the whole race in if the weather and other external factors cooperate. Sometimes we run up against a curfew. Sometimes the track and the local highway patrol get together and say we can only run to this point in time before we have to let these people go. But otherwise, they want to get this race in just every bit as badly as the folks who are in the stands and those of you watching at home.
Well, it's 6:25 Eastern time, local time here, and this place is going to take, the way it's saturated now, close to 2 hours to dry. As it gets darkness, there's just so much moisture in the air. I think we're getting so close to that point in time. And yeah, Mike, we actually still have 42 of our 43 starters out on the racetrack. The only one in the garage area is Mike Bliss in that 09 car.
And he went there with a vibration. Now, Max Pappas went to the garage, but he was only there for about 5 laps. He had lost a lap on the racetrack and lost another one getting back out. But otherwise, everybody who's here and in the race is here to run all day. Among the stories of the week coming forward, who will be in the 36 car next week when we go to Dover? Scott Riggs and Tommy Baldwin are parting company after this race. That was announced this morning.
You know, we gave those report cards out earlier in the broadcast. You saw Jeff Burton just a minute ago walking through the garage area in street clothes. Right now, he is the top running Richard Childress car, 25th. So their woes continue here at Lowe's Motor Speedway for Richard Childress Racing.
Thank you.
An impressive day for 2 of the 3 rookies in the field. Joey Logano right now is 9th, and Scott Speed has been on the lead lap all day. He is 18th, while the 3rd rookie contender we just mentioned
Max Pappas, who spent time in the garage.
And you know, I know we document wins and top 5s and top 10s, but the competition today, a top 15 or top 20 for anybody is a pretty solid day. You look at Scott Speed in 18th. Remember, he did not qualify for the race at Darlington a couple of weeks ago. Actually got in Joe Nemechek's car to race that race.
David Rudiman started this season with a ride, but without a full-time sponsor, Darrell, and it was somewhat questionable whether he would even be here racing this car on this Memorial Day.
Yeah, and I thought Michael did a smart thing. He went to his old buddies at Aaron's, Ken and those guys, and said, you know, David's going to win a race this year. They almost guaranteed it. And if you want, it'd be a shame for you guys not to be a part of that, because you've been with us all the way through from the very beginning, back when Michael was racing from behind his house. And so Michael, I think, almost said, if we don't win a race, I think I might even give you some of your money back. But I tell you, he came through for him. Ken Butler.
Well, David Rudiman has won the Coca-Cola 600. So cool. Welcome to the Lipitor post-race show.
How about that?
It's the first win for Toyota at Lowe's Motor Speedway. It's Rudiman's first win in his 75th career start. It's Michael Waltrip's first win as a car owner in Sprint Cup competition. And Matt Yoakum, the celebration's begun.
Yippee! November 11th, 1962, that man that walks in to give David a hug, his father, Buzzy Rudiman, made his first and only Sprint Cup Series start at Golden Gate Speedway in Tampa. He finished 10th. It's been almost 5.5 decades till the Rudiman family finally could close the deal and score their first win. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, what are you going to say? I mean, it certainly wasn't the prettiest win, but, you know, somebody's got to win these things. And Rodney Childers made a great call, told me to stay out, said we need to come in and work on this thing to make it as good as we need to anyway, and we're probably going to lose some positions on pit road, so let's just stay out here and take a gamble. And I got to thank Aaron's, we got Lowe's Foods on here, we got to thank Sprint, and most of all the fans for hanging out here all day long, and they've been troopers here. And feels really good. You don't envision, when you envision yourself winning your first Sprint Cup race, you know, you envision it a little bit different, but man, it's so hard to win these deals, so we just take them any way we can get them.
When you look at along the way, so many ups and downs, what's the one moment that you think you're going to take back from this season, this win, this day, this special moment with your dad?
The fact that he's here. I mean, you know, we always talked about the fact that we were gonna mess around and win one of these things, and he wasn't going to be here, and so. And fortunately, whether it's a Truck Series or a Nationwide Series or now in the Cup Series, he's been there for all of them. So that feels pretty good.
And congratulations from the big man up in the booth, DW.
Oh, yeah, I got to thank DW. He's the one who gave me my first shot. And I know he was going to fire me, or he probably wanted to, all the stuff I was tearing up. But I appreciate the whole Waltrip family for sticking beside me. Michael Waltrip gave me an opportunity to go race in the Cup Series when nobody ever even would have thought of giving me an opportunity. So, you know, we got this one today, and hopefully the next one we'll earn it.
Congratulations. The trifecta of first, driver, owner, crew chief in victory lane.
David Rudiman has become the 6th Sprint Cup driver to score his first victory in the sport's longest race.
What about that trophy, though? Golly, 250-pound trophy with all those names on there, and David Rudiman won the 50th Coke 600.
All I know is it should say David Rudiman / Rodney Childers on that one.
/ Mother Nature.
Yes, sir.
We'll be right back. With a 14th place finish, Jeff Gordon padded his lead over Tony Stewart, who wound up 19th. Kurt Busch was 34th today. Kyle Busch moved up a spot in the points. So did Ryan Newman, Matt Kenseth, and Carl Edwards. Each gained 1 position, while David Rudiman sits just 6 points back of the top 12. 12 races, 8 different winners so far in this Sprint Cup season. Tonight on Fox, House at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, followed by Bones. And next week, Major League Baseball on Saturday. Dodgers, Cubs, Braves, D-backs, Twins at the Rays. And NASCAR Sprint Cup racing from Dover, presented on Fox by McDonald's, Sunday, 1:30 Eastern.
10:30 Pacific.
You know, we talked about it. Every crew chief on pit road had the opportunity to do the same thing that Rodney Childers did, but Rodney was the one that rolled the dice, and he's the one that goes to victory lane with David Ruderman.
You don't win if you don't take a chance, and the man was willing to take a chance.
You follow the leader, you'll follow the leader.
That's right.
13 drivers were running in front of David Ruderman when that last caution came out. They all went to pit road. Ruderman did not. He went to victory lane.
So proud of my man, Rudy Tootie. Boy, they're going to be a party in Mooresville tonight.
And Spanky in the game.
Yeah, and Spanky's all right, too.
NASCAR on Fox congratulates David Ruderman, winner of the 50th Coke 600.